So here's the deal. My question for the day, because we always do a fun one on Fridays. I made the joke about Scott Pruitt where, wow, how crappy of an employer does the Trump administration have to be for him to quit with all those perks? He had millions of dollars in stuff. He had his little silence booth so he could count his lobbying money in peace. He had unlimited vacation time. And he still stepped down. So, let's do a fun one because it's Friday. You guys know I like to do a fun one on Friday. I like to get to know everybody a little bit better. What is the worst day job you've ever had? Worst day job you've ever had. And for me, this is tough. I've had some really crappy day jobs. Yeah, like I've had some awful, pretty much all of them. I'm the type of guy, I don't function well having a boss. I don't function well being told what to do. I'm just not wired that way. A lot of people are, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with being wired that way. I'm just not. So every day job I've ever had was like taking poison to some degree. The only one that is remotely an exception to that was when I was in graduate school, if that counts. I don't know if it does. I feel like it doesn't. But if that counts, that was definitely my best one. As far as my worst one, wow. You know what? I'll give another shout out to one that was kind of cool. I worked in a warehouse for a long time. In between semesters when I was at college, and then a little bit later after I graduated. That was a cool gig. It was a book warehouse, and I kind of knew the job. I knew it needed to be done. I did it, and I did a good job at it, and I was efficient. So whenever we had downtime, I would just read books in the warehouse because there were just books everywhere. So I would just read whatever books I wanted to, and I could read them for free, and that was pretty cool. So that wasn't a bad gig. Then the other gig I had that was actually really freaking cool, and this is going to sound weird, and I actually talk about this in my act, I was a mortician's assistant. That was one of my first jobs. I worked at a funeral home. I did it all. I removed bodies and everything, and I actually really dug that job. It was cool, and I got to wear a suit. I got to drive a Hearst, which driving those things is really freaking fun. Those things are super fun to drive. Yeah, they go real fast. They're pretty fun. I feel like I said worst day job, and I just told you about the ones that I actually liked. I told you about all the ones that I actually enjoyed doing. I guess the worst one I ever had, and I don't even know if this can count, but I fell for one of those pyramid scheme things once, and I would say that has to be the worst. What happened was there was this vague job description, and this was up in the Northwest, right at the peak of the recession. And, there were just no jobs. I lived in Seattle at the time. That was back when you could still be a poor, broke, recently out of college kid and afford a lot of the neighborhoods in Seattle. I don't know if anyone can anymore. But, this was a little while ago, so you could. And there was this thing on Craigslist, and it said it was a marketing job. And I was like, oh, I have a business degree, So I applied for it, and they were like, man, we had over 100 applicants, and we picked 10 of you guys, and you're one of the 10 that we picked, and here we go. And I was like, okay. And it turns out it was one of those marketing scams. It was what it ended up being was we went door to door and sold office supplies, and it was so horrible. They made you shadow somebody for a day, and we would go into all these business parks where there were these big signs that said no solicitation, and we would just go there anyway. And at one point, I just disconnected from it, and I was like, hey, I gotta go make a phone call. And I would just sit out while they went into these buildings, because I knew I wasn't getting paid anything. You were getting paid, like, they were like, yeah, you'll get a share of the revenue for the day. We didn't sell anything. It was a pyramid scheme. And, yeah, I fell for it. And the whole time, I just kept thinking, I was like, dude, you fell for a pyramid scheme. You're an idiot. So I just, after the day was over, I mean, I stuck it out from the 9 to 5, and I didn't get, you know, I didn't make any money, but, what are you gonna do? All right, let's see what you guys said. I want to hear about yours all's jobs. Brandy worked in a collection agency run by a crackhead and a sociopath for 5 months. Yikes. Wow, that sounds terrible. Garden Gnome, you also did shipping and receiving for a bookstore, and it was the same. You read and wait for the next shipment. Right? That is a cool freaking gig. I genuinely did like that gig when I had it. 4 summers in high school at the road department from CG. Never busted my ass so hard and been paid so little. Ugh. Yeah, that sounds rough. My girlfriend, my girlfriend worked in a wardrobe department of a porn studio at one point. It's probably even grosser than you would imagine. I don't know. I'm imagining it's kind of gross. I'm imagining third shift at an Exxon station, Mike. Yeah, that's probably lame. Waited tables. Kate, you weren't a fan of waiting tables. I could never wait tables. That's... Whew, I have a lot of friends that do it. My girlfriend does it. I could never do it. You would read about me in the paper the next day. I can never do it. Anybody that waits tables, you have my utmost respect and admiration, because I could never ever do it, ever in a million years. Kate waited tables at a mob-owned restaurant full of mob patrons. Wow, geesh, I hope they tipped well, right? I've seen The Sopranos. They tipped well, right? Andrew worked in a mental hospital rehab diversion facility. It was dangerous. Wow, that sounds like pretty much, that sounded pretty heavy work. Pretty heavy work. You guys have some good ones. Oh, this one's interesting. So, Eric, you did this. You did goat genetics collection, semen, and ultrasounding pregnant mutated goats. Dude, if that's for real, that is intense. Holy, wow. Good for you. That's, wow. Some of you guys share my sentiments when it comes to waiting tables. Russ, I had a panic attack every freaking day when waiting tables. Wanted to blow my brains out dealing with those fucks. Waiting table sucks. Bartending is better. I'd imagine Celeste, although I could do neither because I'm way too slow to be a bartender. I did it for a little bit on a boat. And, yeah, it's tough. Farm labor, Chris, wow. I admire that work. I couldn't do it. When I had a crop share in Tennessee, I befriended all my farmers, and I could not relate to their work ethic or just their ability to wake up at 5. Kim worked at a vitamin wholesale warehouse. We had 7 busloads of tourists that came in once. They took pics of you because you had green eyes. That's awesome. All right. So, guys, thanks for sharing your gigs. That was a fun one. You know me. I like to do a fun one on Fridays. Hey, guys. Thanks for watching. That was a clip from Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means I log on to a stream and people tweet me articles over on Twitter at Ron Placone, or they use our Reddit subsection, which is just Get Your News On with Ron over on Reddit. And that's how we build the show. I'm seeing all these articles for the first time. We are literally getting our news on together. Follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone so you can participate. And this show streams live every Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please do tune in. If you want to support this show, you can do so over on patreon.com/Ron Placone, where for as low as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts every week, exclusive videos, free tickets to shows when I'm performing in your town, and more for as low as $1 a month. Please do consider it. Thank you so much for your support. This has been Get Your News On with Ron.